in the past week, some top senior government officials come under the spotlight of the anti-graft agencies in the land. And there are several high-profile cases involving politically exposed persons. The Buhari-led federal government has said it wants to fight corruption, although it has been heavily criticized by opposition voices and some eminent Nigerians that the fight has been selective. But with the recent actions of the anti-graft agency, are we in for a more interesting time? Let's speak to the head of legal at the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the EFCC. I've now been joined by Mr. Kabiru Latona. Thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Thank you, Seun.
It does look like there is a renewed energy in the commission. Is it?
Well, first and foremost, good evening, Nigerians. The commission has always been committed and dedicated in the discharge of its duties, whether before and now. And under the leadership of the acting executive chairman, we have had a more determined focus and exhibited a high degree of professionalism in our responsibility.
Let me I probably will ask you also, before I go into some specifics, is the fact that there are several opinions and allegations that the commission is very selective in its fight. Is the commission worried about the portrayal of some of the cases it picks to prosecute in the recent time?
Well, I think let's put the issue in proper perspective. The question we should be asking ourselves is that those who are being subjected to prosecutions, has allegation of crime been made against them? Has evidence been gathered against them? And are they being prosecuted before the normal law courts? The issue of selection is immaterial because the word selection may be capable of several interpretations.
But again, you are a lawyer,
yes,
I suppose, and you know what is said in law.
Yes.
That when you are in discharge of justice,
yes,
that justice must not only be seen,
to be done.
To be done.
Yes.
But so so it's not only about perception.
Yeah.
It's about the trueness of what you're doing. So perception is also important, yeah, from the framing of that popular saying in law.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Essentially, for us, we are colorblind. What is essential is that there is a complaint about somebody, the complaint is investigated, and once we gather prima facie evidence, we proceed to court against that person. And we allow the law courts, who is the final determinant, to determine the guilt or otherwise of that person. So you dwell on only the petitions being brought to you? We've been hearing this issue of selection from time immemorial. During the regime of President Olusegun Obasanjo, this issue of selection came forward. During the time of President Jonathan, yes, there was this issue about selection as well. Now, we keep talking about the same selection. So what are we actually talking about? Is it that those who are being prosecuted are not the right persons to be prosecuted? I think that should be the proper issue. Do we have enough evidence to prosecute them or not? The fact that you have 10 people in a room and you start with one person does not mean you eventually are not going to reach the other 9 persons in the room. Be mindful of the fact that ACAs, anti-corruption agencies, have limited resources in terms of personnel, in terms of money available to them, so they can't just take on everybody at the same time. These things have to be done methodologically. At a point in time, they spoke about this selection. If you can cast your mind back within some couple of weeks back, a former governor of one of the northern states, who happens to belong to the APC, his properties has been a subject of interim attachment by the ICPC, and is being investigated by both ACS. A former governor, equally in the southern state, who is an APC member, is certain monies which were allegedly linked to him, has been an object of interim forfeiture based on an application made by the commission to the court. So what are we talking about? This issue of selection. If the issue is actually about selection, then those persons would not have gone after them.
Because some people will tell you that there are actually wars against such personalities within their own ranks. That's why they are being they come after them. But the question I want to raise also, you mentioned something, and I'm actually curious about it. A lot of Nigerians may not know. Is it true that the only cases the EFCC dwell on are the cases that when they get petitions from the outside?
No, not
do
basically.
Do you originate your own cases?
Not basically. You see, there are several ways by which investigation could be kick-started. It could come in form of a criminal complaint. It could come in form of an intelligence. It could come in form of an information. For instance, a financial intelligence could be generated by the NFIU to any of the ACS, whether EFCC or ICPC, saying that as a result of what is called an STR, a suspicious financial transaction report, that they believe there is need to conduct an investigation into a particular account to ascertain whether that account is not being used as an object of crime or money laundering. So it is not exactly true that the investigation could only come about as a result of criminal complaint.
Let me take you up on some specific. Before I forget, what has become of the Ikoyi monies? Those large sum of monies that your agents, your personnel of the EFCC stormed on recently, not so far along.
Okay. If you understand the workings of the EFCC, you would know what the EFCC does and how they go about it. The EFCC is established by an act called the EFCC Establishment Act 2004. And that act provides for laws that the Commission has to operate. One of those laws is what is called the Advanced Fee Fraud Act. Using the Section 17 of it, otherwise called non-conviction-based forfeiture, the Commission ensured that the money was forfeited to the federal government of Nigeria. And in line with the provisions of the EFCC Act, the appropriate officer of the Commission has ensured that the money is transmitted to the federal government. At that level, the responsibility of the EFCC stops.
So the money is under, it has been, taken over by the federal government.
Was subject to an order of final forfeiture.
So has it been finally forfeited now?
The money has been finally forfeited, and as a result of that, the EFCC has done what it should do to ensure that the money gets to the appropriate quarters. So
there are some cases around it, as the commission still prosecuting the cases around that money.
Which of those
cases?
Ikoyi money? Which of those cases are you
talking about? The cases of the case of the former intelligence agency head.
There was no time that the EFCC instituted an action against any head of any agency. What was being carried out at that point in time was investigation. We have not yet initiated prosecution against the head of any agency.
So you have not linked that money to anybody?
No. I told you the mechanism we used.
Yeah, I understand. But in the conclusion of that case, you've explained to
investigation is still going on.
Up to now.
And investigation is not.
But you said you forfeited the money. The money has been forfeited.
Yes, that is non-conviction-based forfeiture.
Okay.
You go after the loot while you are still investigating as to where the loot came from. Because don't forget that the object of economic and financial crime is the proceed itself.
Okay.
And that is what pays most of the criminals who engage in those things more.
But what if you now discover that you lose that case and the money is rightfully someone's own money?
No, it couldn't have occurred because there are mechanisms before the final forfeiture.
Okay. Let's pause for a moment. Up next on the program, we'll take a breather. There are critical issues on the fight against corruption. We find out more on the thirst of the federal government and the EFCC and other agencies to retrieve looted funds in the country. Join us again, everyone.
I will remain steadfast. I mentioned how when I came in uniform much younger, I arrested people and put them in detention and said they are guilty until they can prove themselves innocent. And we put an investigative panel almost based on the geopolitics of the country. And the governors, the ministers then who were found not accountable, they were made to return to the government. But in the end, I too was arrested and detained. But this time around, we made sure that we introduce Treasury single account, whichever money is driven is put there, and then it's going out will be watched by the Attorney General and the Accountant General of the Federation. So we are doing our best within the system, and we are remaining steadfast.
Thank you so much, everyone, and welcome back. We've been looking at what the anti-graft agents, especially the EFCC, has been doing over the past few months since Mr. Ibrahim Magu became the head of the commission. In the last few weeks, there's been a spotlight on a few people, especially top government officials who have been investigated by the EFCC. And tonight, we are putting our spotlight also on the fight against corruption in the country. Mr. Kabiru Latona is the Deputy Director of Legal Services at the EFCC and has been talking to us on this matter. Thank you so much, Mr. Latona, for your insight in some of these issues. Let me quickly take you on some of the specifics. Mrs. Oyoita, the head of service, is he in your custody or you're just investigating?
So we don't discuss issue of investigation either on the pages of a newspaper or on a television screen. Investigation is conducted discreetly. Whether this or that is not...
But you saw that it was reported that allegedly that she is being investigated.
Newspaper reports are one thing. What the commission is doing is another thing.
But is it true?
You see, the point is this. People have accused us in the past. They accuse us of playing to the gallery, we go to press and everything. So what we are doing and what we've always been doing is scientific investigation. So whatever we are doing for now in relation to several aspects of investigation, we prefer not to discuss it on the tube of television.
Well, as it stands right now, because those are some of there are huge cases involving a lot of money. One in case is the one the FBI allegedly about $11 million or $1 billion of Mr. Obi-Wan Okeke, Invictus Okeke. I know that has the commission heard about that case?
So, one thing you need to know about all these cases of internet fraud, inclusive of the one you have mentioned, is that these things are actually underreported in Nigeria. Within the past 1 year, the Commission has embarked on Operation Cyberstorm. And it's just that a lot of people are not aware of the activities of the Commission along this axis. There has been a kind of refined internet scam, whereby these boys have the ability to hack into the website and emails of both individuals within Nigeria and outside, such that they take possession of your mails, conduct your financial transaction, and cause heavy loss to individuals. The Commission quietly has been working along this axis, arresting, investigating, and prosecuting lots of them. Within January and August, Friday, before the holidays, we recorded over 750 convictions along this line, minus the recoveries we have made as restitution to individuals overseas and within Nigerians that have been objects of this scam.
So is it safe to make internet transactions in Nigeria?
Well, technology is good, including the internet. But just like every human invention, just like it could be used for the positive aspect, you equally have some individuals who manipulate it for negative tendencies. You can't rule that out.
Nigeria has gotten a bad name because of some of these kind of persons in the name of the 419 and how they surreptitiously interact with people across the sea, and they tell them about themselves using emotional and transactional ways to get money from them.
Love scam.
Love scam. And with this image, we understand what the NFIU and the other FIUs in the world, what that connection is. The NFIU still connected to the EFCC or is housed differently?
With the promulgation, the enactment of the NFIU Act, the NFIU is now a different body. But that does not mean that the NFIU is not performing its role as that of a disseminator of financial intelligence to the ACAs, including EFCC. So relevant financial intelligence is still disseminated from the FIU down to the EFCC.
So some people have criticized that there's been a breakdown between that connection that you always had when NFIU was actually domiciled in the EFCC, that's the pace of intelligence share is now slowed down.
To the best of my knowledge, there is no breakdown. In fact, recently I have attended meetings of what is known as the Interagency Task Force, comprised of all ACAs with people in NFIU, who were my previous colleagues in the EFCC. So in fact, there is a robust relationship. And then don't forget that even under the relevant laws of EFCC, the Money Laundering Act, the EFCC itself has the capacity to demand and generate some level of financial intelligence.
Because you've handicapped me because of your response, and I imagine that that's going to be a cut and paste response from some of the other cases I probably would have loved to take you into, because the case of the former SGF, the case of some former governors who are going to be in government. There are several cases, and of course, as soon as you spoke about the head of service alleged investigation need, I understand that may be an issue. There's been a criticism, though, that why is it now, when there is a case in court over a former vice president, that you are going after people related to him?
Well, like I said at the beginning of the interview, there is really no perfect timing for prosecution of cases. Generally, criminal prosecution has no time lag. If you commit a crime now, except for some criminal offenses, it could be after 5 years before you are prosecuted. Again, there are limited resources. So you strategize on how to go about your prosecution. Several factors come into play. It's not just a question of you pick somebody up today and you decide to go to court tomorrow. No. Several factors come into play that determines when cases are taken to court.
So before I allow you to go, you've confiscated. There is a former governor in the Southeast. I understand is to appear before you again. Is that true?
Can you be specific about the person we are talking
about? The alleged case against the former governor of Imo State.
Yes. You were saying what? That
if the investigation, I understand that you're investigating him and you're grilling him over some cases linked to him, allegedly.
Yes, investigation is going on in relation, and I'm sure you are aware of the fact that some properties were subject of interim forfeiture orders pertaining to this person.
What about the former governor of Zamfara? The alleged case against him. I understand that he's gone to court now.
Like I made you to understand, about some couple of days ago, the ICPC obtain an interim forfeiture order in respect of certain real properties and money fixed in an account belonging to the object of discussion.
You've, in the past and recently also, gone after state governments, and you've asked courts to also shut down accounts linking to some state governors. A lot of people have challenged the right of the EFCC to do that. Why do you keep doing that?
You see, you can fight corruption or economic and financial crime either proactively or reactively. The proactive measure is the best, which is prevent it from being moved. A lot of people are not aware that some of these things are not done willy-nilly. They are predicated on financial intelligence. You talked about NFIU now, providing the ACAs with financial intelligence. This is what happens in some cases. Even Channels Television itself will come up with a report, submit a secret whatever to us and say, look, you hear this and this and this, and when inquiries is conducted, and if preliminary results indicates some of the allegations you are saying, rather than prevent this money from being moved, you quickly move in. PND the account and obtain an interim order.
Including the state government.
The courts have ruled on it. The competency predicated on existing laws. EFCC is not just obtaining forfeiture orders based on non-existence platform. We use the existing laws.
Does the commission have the power to shut down accounts linked to a state government, knowing full well that governance might be shut down? That's a question a lot of people are asking.
The commission is not shutting down a state government. What the commission is trying to prevent is dissipation of public funds, which is suspected to be an object of crime. Please, let's distinguish. We are not shutting down. So many state governments are operating. So many local governments are operating. How many of them have we shut down? But where you get financial intelligence that somebody is about to move money because he's elected there as a trustee of the people and he wants to move the commonwealth of the people to his personal account, would you allow that? Is that not the reason why you set up the commission in the first case? And these things are subject to judicial review. If at the end of the day the courts find out that there are no probable reasons, the order will not be granted.
I must allow you go, Mr. Kabiru Latona, the Deputy Director of Legal Services at the EFCC. When it comes to issues of court, the language of interaction is always a very delicate one for those who understand. Thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Thank you, Shil.